Welcome to another Falcon 4 BMS tutorial. This tutorial is going to cover the Datalink. The Datalink is a digital system that allows you to know the position of other aircraft in your flight as well as your package to gain increased situational awareness and to send cursor and positional data digitally. And the practical use for such a system like this is that, first off, and most importantly, you can have situational awareness on where your flight is in relation to the other flights in your package. And that reduces the need for comms clutter, for alpha checks, and asking other flights for bullseye positions and bearing range and altitude. And the second thing is that it allows you to quickly sort out air contacts and then send, or you can actually assign air contacts to people in your flight. So for instance, if there's 4 bandits on the nose and they're coming in at you, you don't really have time to verbally tell each person in your flight, what you want them to engage, or at least it complicates things if you have to do that. So what you can do with the Datalink is you can select each target one by one and then digitally assign the targets to the other people in your flight. A third and really powerful aspect of the Datalink is that you can send cursor and position data. So if you see on your FCR a position of like an armored tank column, you can instantly transmit that position using cursor data. And if you don't want to send just a cursor position, which is a temporary thing, you can actually send a mark point. You can transmit digitally mark points or steer points, and then all the flights in the package will have that data available. So they'll get a thing on their HUD which says data mark point 71, and then all they need to do is switch to steer point 71, and then they'll have the exact position that you marked. You can refer to that over and over again. So the Datalink is sort of a crucial thing that will greatly increase your survivability and the survivability of everyone in your package. And it's something that you really need to know in order to master this game. That being said, the first thing we're going to go over is where do you see the Datalink? How do you host the Datalink? So by default, we'll see here on our right MFD that I cannot see the other aircraft in my flight. They are physically, as we can see from looking around, they are physically flying with me. You can see them there. My other wingman's over there on my wing. My flight is in formation, in good proper formation. They're flying with me, but I can't see them on the HSD. Now, in Allied Force and in previous versions of Falcon, the Datalink was hosted by default and you really couldn't customize it. But in this, at least one aircraft needs to host the Datalink before the other aircraft are able to visibly see them. So right now it's not hosted. So the first step in using the Datalink is to host it. And the way you do that is, on your left FCR, you're going to change this option here which says assign on the right side of the FCR. You're going to change that to CONT, which is continuous. Then you're going to hold down Control O for about 2 seconds and then release it. What you'll see is that the continuous option will light up white, and then on your HSD you'll see the other aircraft that are in your flight. And if we were to add other flights to the Datalink, we'd also be seeing them right now as well. But the first step is to just host the Datalink. Anyone in the flight can do it. The flight lead should probably do it though. Now, we have the Datalink hosted. We can see aircraft in our own flight, and we can even use all the functions of the Datalink as it applies to our particular flight. But as I said, one of the most powerful features of the Datalink is that you can actually view other flights on your HSD and get some really good situational awareness. So the way we do that is as follows, okay? You're going to click List on your ICP, and you're going to see the list of stuff on your DED. Just press enter, and then it'll bring you to the COM page. We're going to go ahead and ignore that. Just click sequence on your ICP rocker. You're going to click sequence. Now we see the area. Now on the DED, interflight data link is shown, and we have the option to assign other aircraft to the data link other than those in our flight. So as we can see now, it shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can simultaneously have 8 different aircraft on your data link. Okay. Now when you have a package, the first flight in that package is 1. Okay, and the leader of that flight is 1-1, and his wingman is 1-2, and the second element leader is 1-3, and his wingman is 1-4. And it goes down like that. So the second flight lead is 2-1, the third flight lead is 3-1, and the fourth flight lead is 4-1. So right now, as we can see here, at data link position 1, 4-1 is being displayed on the data link, which is myself. 4-2 is in position 2, 4-3, and then 4-4. So everyone in my flight is on the data link. Now, I can add, the other flight leaders to the data link, or I can add an entire flight by this little green thing right here. Shows you what you have selected. All you're going to do is you're going to press down on the ICP rocker until you go to a blank space. So I have position 5 selected. Now let's say I want to add the other flights. I know that in this package there are 3 other flights. There's F5, some Eurofighters, and something else. Now all I do, let's say I want to add the flight lead from flight 1. I just go type 11 and then enter. Okay. And then you'll see what happens is that on your HSD you'll see 11. Okay. 11 is now displayed on the HSD, and he'll also be on my FCR as well. You can see him right here. 11, 29,000 feet. So when someone's on the data link, it appears both on the FCR and on the HSD. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, I could add the other flights, 2-1 and 3-1 and 5-1. Or I could add all the ships from his flight. So let's say I can put in 1-2, 1-3, 1-4. Now we see on the data link and on the FCR, we see all the ships. Let me expand the radar image just so you can see it. All the ships of the first flight. And same thing with our HSD. I'm just going to switch sensor of interest, go over there and expand it. You see here on the HSD all the ships of the first flight. Now when you're flying in a large package and you want to have general situational awareness, you're never going to want to use up all the slots on individual ships. You're going to want to use it just for the flight leads. So let's go 2-1. You can see here what I'm doing over here. 3-1. And 4-1. Or I'm 4-1, whatever. So let's put 5-1. So now we have all of my flight and the flight leads for 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, and 5-1 flights. And we can see here, if I zoom out on the HSD, we'll see them all. So the second flight is to our 3 o'clock. They're about 60 miles, and the third flight's to our 1 o'clock. They're about the same, 60 miles. And then the first flight is to our 10 o'clock, and they're also about 40 miles. So that's how you add aircraft to your data link. Now, what you should note is that the first 4 are it's designed for your own flight, so they all are one color. They're all going to be blue. And the next 4 are all green. So just, if you're only like a 2-ship flight, I would still recommend using 5, 6, 7, and 8. This way you don't get confused and think that you have more ships than you do. So to get out of that, all we do is just click return, and that's how you assign aircraft to the data link. Okay, now the next thing we're going to go over is how to assign air contacts using the data link. So the general procedure is as follows. Okay, we're going to spot an air contact. We're going to lock them up on the FCR, and then on the right side of our FCR here we have the data link mode and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one of these numbers corresponds to who you're going to be sending the data to. So if I lock someone up and I click 2, then it's going to say transmit next to, it's going to say transmit on top of the number, and it's going to transmit that FCR position to 2. And then you'll also note, it goes away rather quickly, so let me just do it again. You'll note that on the FCR it will say 2 and then the altitude. It's basically indicating to me that I sent him data. And that will allow you to visually see who you've assigned targets to and then sort them. And again, make sure you expand the radar screen. This way you guys can actually see what's going on. Two, send it there. We can see 2 has been designated with that target, and then over here on the HSD will also display the same. So you see here, I can see that it was designated as well right here. So this is really useful. Again, if you have like 4 bandits coming in on your nose, you can just very quickly, lock the first one up, assign it to 2, lock the second one up, assign it to 3, lock the fourth one up, assign it to 4, and then on their screen it will say data, and they'll get an indicator that they were assigned. Actually, it will say assigned across the HUD, and then it will be assigned to them. And there's going to be a video segment in a moment that will show you what it looks like in practice. Okay, we got bandits at 141 for 113, Angels 22.
2 tallies.
Lead sorting. 2, engage the first trail. Angels 22, reference data link.
2 tallies data, agent.
Lead's got the lead. Lead's notching left.
Lead, be advised, bandits inbound 122098, Angels 22, data inbound.
Data.
Lead copies, going defensive.
2's with you.
Chaff flare. Chaff flare. Chaff flare.
So now that we've seen how to share data using airborne contacts, let me show you how to do it with ground contacts. Now, in order to do this, you need to use your air-to-ground radar, and all you do, this is just sharing an individual position. This isn't sharing a steer point or anything like that. You would slew to the position that you want to share on your FCR, and then just press right control P, and then we'll see when we do that it says transmit on the right side of our HSD. Let me just do that one more time. And what the and you can also see how you can also do it off of your HSD. So for instance, like we can see the cursor here for the FCR. We don't need to use the GM or the GMT radar screen. We can just do it off of our over the HSD as well. But the point is that you have to have the FCR as a center of interest. You slew over what you want, and then you press right control P, and you'll see transmitting on the right side of the FCR. And then what the players will see is they'll see a little star, little yellow star with your number next to it. And I'm going to show you a little video clip of what that looks like. Now, another really cool feature of the data link, and arguably the most powerful feature, is that you can actually transmit steer point or mark point information digitally, and then it will synchronize across your entire flight. Now, in order to do this, you need to press DMS down. You need to change the center of interest from the FCR or the HUD to your right MFD to the HSD. Okay, so we need to make the HSD the center of interest. At this point, if we press right Control P, it will digitally transmit whatever steer point we have selected as a mark point to the rest of your flight, and they'll receive that as a steer point that they can then reference. Okay, so if we wanted to, share target 8, let's say for whatever reason the guy in your flight fucked up his steer points, and target 8 is no longer the correct. It's no longer the correct longitude and latitude or whatever. So you can select target 8 and then press right Control P. It's going to do the exact same thing as when we send data using the FCR as a center of interest. It will say transmit on the right side. You'll hear a little tone, which we're not hearing right now because I have the game paused. And then what will flash on their HUD right about here is it will flash with mark point and then a number, and then they can then switch to that steer point or mark point using their ICP, and the mark points begin at 71. So the first thing that you're going to send them is going to be 71, and each consequent steer point or mark point is going to go up. So it'll be 71, 72, 73. And if you don't know how to do this, a really quick way to get to steer points, rather than so there's a few ways to change steer points. Rather than clicking this button to change steer points, or by pressing S or Control S, which also cycles through steer points, an easier way to get to a really high steer point is to just click steer point on your ICP and then type in the steer point that you want and then press enter, and that will jump to the steer point that you entered. It's much easier to get to than having to press S or Shift S or clicking the steer point switch on your ICP. Now, so what you would do is you select, as I said, you select the steer point, then you press right Control P. Now, what if that's pretty useless, because all we've gone over so far is selecting steer points that we already have. So, most of the time, the people in your flight are not going to mess up their flight plan, and that'll be a pretty useless feature. Now, what is not a useless feature is creating mark points. You can create a steer point on the fly anywhere where you have a center of interest. So the way you do this is, let's say, I'm going to unpause this. I'll fly towards the shore. Okay. We see here on our we see here on our ground-based radar a number of radar contacts. I don't know what they are. They're probably buildings. It's probably the air base that I just came from. I don't really care what they are. This is just for demonstration purposes. Let's say that these were tanks, okay? And, I see a nice column right here. And I want to direct my flight to attack this column. Now, what I would do is I would click mark on my ICP, number 7. Click mark. Then on your DED, it's going to be asking you mark, and then what do you want the sensor to be that you're going to be marking your steer point from. So we don't want to do HUD. Okay, so we're going to click mark again, and that's going to change it to targeting pod. We don't want targeting pod. And zero fly, see where it says zero fly right here? That means your current position right now. We don't want that, because we don't want them to attack the ocean. And now it's on FCR. Now how do you create the steer point? So what we've done so far is we've selected the sensor that we want to create it from. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually create it. And the way you do that is you just press TMS up on the sensor. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to press slew over there to the contacts again. And press TMS up. And now we'll see the longitude and latitude has been entered. and this is good to go. And we see also it designated as mark point 27. So that mark point has been created. Now what we're going to do is we're going to press 4 on our ICP, change to mark point 27. We see that it updated there with the longitude and latitude. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did before when we were sharing steer points that already existed. And by the way, you can see the position where you made the mark point on your HSD. It appears as a blue X. Anyway, we're going to now switch.
Falcon 1-3, inbound for landing.
We're now going to switch our center of interest.
Falcon 1-2, inbound for landing.
Let me kill my comms here.
Falcon 1-4, inbound for landing.
Falcon 1-4, orbit for spacing.
Okay, so we're going to select the HSD as a center of interest. Then we're going to press right control P. Okay. Now, on everyone in your flight screen, it's going to say mark point across the HUD again. And it's also going to show them the blue cross where your mark point was. And then if they want to go to that, they can do it just by, again, clicking steer point on the ICP and then typing in the steer point name. So this way you can say, hey, element 2, attack movers at mark point standby data, and then send them the data, and then hopefully they got the data, and then they can attack based off of that steer point. So hopefully, and again, you don't have to use the FCR as as your center of interest. You could use, one really useful way is just to put it on O-fly, which means overfly, okay? Put it on overfly, then fly over whatever you want to bomb, and then when you're over it, just press TMS up, okay? And you can keep pressing TMS up. Every time you press it, it's going to create a new mark point, though, so don't spam it too hard. So, like, let's say I visually see, I see a fisherman right there. He's conducting illegal fishery, okay?
Altitude. Altitude.
Come on to him, strafe his fishing operation, and then once I'm over him, I see his boat escaping. I'm gonna say, hey, flight, reference the mark point. I just marked it by pressing TMS up, and then I just select the HSD as my center of interest, and then press right control P. So hopefully this tutorial was useful. I've gone over everything virtually about the data link that you need to know. Please let me know if I can clarify anything or go over additional topics. Thanks.
Lead, be advised we got movers at 163 for 060. Data to follow.
Data.
Tally the data. Let's roll in.
2 copies. Two ground movers spotted. Bullseye 19er 7079er. Mark point to follow.
Data.
Lead copies mark point 71.